Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Sustainable Cleveland 2020 Virtual Summit. We would like to thank our host for the summit, the Cleveland Public Library. My name is Deepa Vedavyas. I'm the Sustainability Manager, the Mayor's Office of Sustainability Cleveland. And you have joined the LEED for Cities, How Ohio Municipalities Are Measuring Sustainability Progress breakout session. We ask that you remain muted throughout the session, and please use the chat box at the top right of your screen for questions or comments. Please also check the chat box for resources that would be shared periodically during the session. And finally, please note that this session will be recorded and will be made available in a few days. And today we have with us Oliver Kroner, Ollie, Sustainability Coordinator of the City of Cincinnati. His work focuses on climate science and urban policy, including energy, transportation, waste, and food systems. He leads collaboration of government and community partners to advance and track sustainability, equity, and resilience strategies of Green Cincinnati Plan. He is a published researcher and has presented over 100 conferences and events, including the UN Convention on Climate Change, ICLEI, World Congress, Smart Region Conference, Design Build, Cincy, Project Drawdown, International Congress on Sustainability Science and Engineering, and more. He has served on numerous nonprofit boards, including Green Partnership for Greater Cincinnati, Mill Creek Alliance, Cincinnati 2030 District Working Group, Northside Community Council President, Fuel Cincinnati, and PAR projects. He is a graduate of Miami University and Northeastern University and a proud AmeriCorps alum. Welcome, Ollie. And next we have Michael Peters, and he is a consultant to the City of Shaker Heights, where he staffs the city's sustainability committee and acts as a sustainability coordinator. He works with additional clients on sustainability and electric vehicle initiatives and is a member of the U.S. Green Building Council's Northeast Ohio local leadership team. He is a LEED AP, Eco District AP, certified green roof professional, and certified passive house consultant. Welcome, Michael. So the format we are hoping to follow is we represent 3 different cities, and we are all in LEED for Cities certification process in different stages of the process. And so we would all take 15 minutes each to go over our respective cities' efforts in the process, and we will have 15 minutes towards the end reserved for Q&A. Thank you all for joining, and please continue to post your questions in the Q&A section in the chat, and we will get to it. First, we would like to go in the order of our certification. Like, City of Cleveland, we are just starting to pursue it. We are working towards the certification, and Michael with City of Shaker Heights, they have just submitted their application and expecting to hear back from USGBC. And then towards the end, we will let Ollie talk about their success story. They have already certified LEED for Cities. Thank you. LEED for Cities, measuring sustainability progress. Beyond 2019, many of you were part of the decade-long initiative of Sustainable Cleveland Initiative, which was very successful in setting the foundation for our sustainability efforts throughout the community. And we, in the Mayor's Office of Sustainability, we hope to continue the momentum, ingrain the principles, and unified effort that came through the process, and continue, as our vision statements has always continued to push towards becoming a green city on a blue lake. We take our next step in becoming a LEED for Cities certified city. And LEED for City is a comprehensive, globally applicable, yet locally relevant tool that would allow us to become a sustainable city. And LEED for City raises the bar on urban sustainability performance. To date, over 100 cities are certified, but less than 20 are platinum rated certification across the globe. And this is a quantitative and a qualitative approach that the certification process itself takes. And we hope that this certification will help us become a more sustainable, equitable, and resilient city as we go through the process. And essentially, our goal is to get to LEED for Cities Platinum City, and we see that it is not going to be easy, or it is not going to happen anytime soon, but we hope that over the course of 2 to 3 recertification process and working towards it, we would eventually get there. And why LEED for Cities, you may ask. In January, we applied for the US Green Building Council's technical grant to support the certification efforts, and City of Cleveland is selected as one of the 20 cities as part of the grant process. And in this map to your right, you would see that there is a mix of larger and smaller cities from across the country who are in our cohort as participants. And this year, within the state of Ohio, Cleveland is one of the cities, only city that is considered. And LEED for Cities truly gives us a holistic look at how we are doing and as a city, and also recognizes that we, as every city is very different and unique, we also need some flexibility, and this certification offers that type of flexibility in its model, and the credits that we can pursue. And there are some open-ended items that help us to be contextual with respect to Cleveland, like the innovation credits and renewable and the regional credits as well. So this is a data-driven and a performance-based process, and this allows us to harness the power of data to benchmark cities and our sustainability journey. So this certification process also gives us something to aim for and better our programmatic efficiency. And a significant aspect of this certification links back to the quality of life process and questions us as are we actually improving the conditions for residents throughout our community through our efforts and so on. And it also lets us align heavily of our existing efforts and program. Some of the programs that the LEED for Cities aligns with our priorities are climate action plan. Many were involved in the climate action plan update process that happened in 2018, which was also recognized by American Planning Associations as one of the best plans in the Sustainable Cities Division. And we also have our Sustainable Cleveland Municipal Action Plan that has to be updated, which also aligns very much with our LEED for Cities priorities. And there are other department initiatives such as Tree Plan, Vision Zero, Healthy Neighborhood Initiatives, Neighborhood Transformative Initiatives, Healthy Homes Initiative, Age Friendly Cleveland, just to quote a few examples, which aligns very much with our priorities as well. And this particular image shows that LEED for Cities, the rating system itself, integrates several complementary standards, and it has derived best practices out of many familiar rating systems, such as LEED for Neighborhood Development, Star Cities rating system, which used to be, prior to LEED for Cities, cities were rated as Star Cities, and Cleveland was one of the Star Cities. So it integrates all the best practices, and there are a lot of complementary credits that overlaps and incorporated within the LEED for Cities. And globally, if you look at it, LEED for Cities aligns with UN Sustainable Development Goal. And recently, I think in the month of September, USGBC also published a research paper aligning those goals with LEED for Cities, and should be available in public. And we would be happy to share those resources post the summit. This also provides a flexible, credible, and globally consistent way of communicating our progress. What we do locally, it allows us the vocabulary to speak in the global platform. Of the 17 goals, if you look at this nested SDGs, there is a significant correlation that, even our speaker today, Dr. Julian Agimon, pointed out that environmental work along with sustainable justice has to go hand in hand. Very much going in line with that, you see that SDGs, out of the 17 SDGs, 8 of them are focused on societal aspects. And LEED for Cities also has a significant emphasis on quality of life as a criteria, which is very unique to this rating system. And if you have worked on any of the LEED projects, this particular scoreboard might be very familiar to you, but I apologize for the font size. The 7 criteria in which the LEED for Cities certification are rated are integrative process, which is talks about the structure of the project itself. How are we organizing ourselves in our interoperation from start to finish of the project? And the second category is natural systems and ecology. This heavily focuses on the unbuilt space and the green access to green space and to individuals and communities and so on. And transportation and land use focuses on our built environment and connectivity. Water efficiency category talks about our access to drinking water, stormwater, and wastewater management and so on. Energy and greenhouse emission focuses on the demand side and supply side management and how efficient are we as a city in managing them. Materials and resources is another category that focuses on waste management process and recycling and other aspects of materials and resource management, which plays a critical role in the city. Quality of life focuses on citywide efforts on distributional equity, trend improvement, affordability, civic engagement, and others. 4 main aspects that this particular category focuses on is equitability, health, and the focus primarily is on civic engagement and also talking about the environmental justice aspect. Innovation and regional priority credits are some of those open-ended credits that is available where we can feature and share some of the successes in terms of our policy efforts that we have within the city and also any innovative programming measures that we have taken that allows us to move forward in our sustainability journey. And that this particular segment of the slide actually talks about the different scales in which the rating system itself, which is we are currently hoping to aim for a LEED for Cities certified. Eventually, as we mentioned, our goal is to get to LEED for Cities Platinum. This slide shows a snapshot of our climate action plan priorities that our city we have worked towards and the LEED for Cities categories and how they are very much similar and how it aligns well with our existing efforts, which focuses on aspects of transportation, clean energy, material resources, and clean water, and food and waste and quality of life aspects. So there are a lot of parallels that can be drawn with our existing efforts, and we can continue to work on improving them and so on. With respect to the LEED for Cities project timeline, this certification itself allows us to document our as-is condition within the city in terms of our sustainability work and collect relevant data and compile the application and submit it for the certification. Originally, the timeline, we are slightly off due to some of the challenges due to the pandemic, but we still anticipate turning in our application and submit it by December. And we should hope to hear sometime in spring of 2021. And this would be the phase 1. And as phase 2, which would be the optimization, we hope to use the feedback that comes from USGBC and incorporate those in updating our policies and programs appropriately and use this as an exercise to conduct gap analysis as to where and which categories we are lacking and we can continue to improve further and so on. The end, I would like to leave us all with a quote that city from Jane Jacobs, cities have the capability of providing something for everybody only because and only when they are created by everybody. Thank you very much. So now I would request Michael, if you can share some of your work in Shaker Heights. Thank you.
Oh, yep. Let me see if I can get this to be bigger. There we go. Hi, everyone. Thanks very much. And Deepa, thank you very much for having us. We really appreciate being a part of Sustainable Cleveland. It's been a big part of the last several years for me as a sustainability professional, and really appreciate the City of Cleveland taking a leadership role in this. I'm also very much happy to be the warm-up act for Ali. What he and the City of Cincinnati have done is really, really inspirational. So really looking forward to hearing what he has to say. But what I thought I wanted to do, and Deepa, you gave a great overview of the program itself. So I'm going to concentrate a little bit more for us on why we did it. We really approach the Lead for Cities program as an extension of our sustainability efforts overall in the city of Shaker Heights, which are really informed by our cultural identity and sense of place. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that today, assuming I can move forward here. There we go. For those of you not familiar, Shaker Heights is a first-ring suburb of Cleveland. So we're also in Cuyahoga County, so we're in the same county, but we are a separate municipal entity, about 6 square miles and about 27,000 people. Down, a little bit from our peak. We probably peaked in population in the 1960s, a lot smaller family sizes today. We were established in 1912 as what most planners will, I think, not argue with me too much about, as the first master plan community in the United States. There had been some master plan neighborhoods prior to Shaker Heights, but Shaker Heights was really the first master plan community, and was really, again, informed by the Garden City movement from the UK. It had been a Shaker settlement, so we get our name from the North Union Shaker settlement that was in existence from about 1822 to 1892. At that point, there were a couple failed attempts at development prior to Otis and Mantis van Swearingen, who established the city in 1912 and really led its development from that point on. Oops, going the wrong way. And really, from the beginning, we were designed around rail. So you may have heard the term streetcar suburb. So that's basically what Shaker was designed to be. It's not quite a streetcar just because of the distance. So we have what I think Clevelanders affectionately refer to as the rapid. So the rapid transit system, which is somewhere between a streetcar and a light rail system. So we have quite a few stops throughout the city. Effectively, I think 92% of the city is within a half mile of a rail stop, and pretty much the entire city is within either a half mile of a rail stop or a quarter mile of a bus stop. So we're very, very well connected to transit, and that has really been a big part of our identity and a big attraction for the city. The city did operate the transit system until 1974, when it became part of the county's system, which is the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority. Today, our cultural identity is closely tied to this legacy of green space. We're fortunate to have, quite a bit of green space and parks and 4 lakes, 2 of which the Shakers developed and 2 of which were developed by the Van Swearingen brothers. And we've had this commitment to social and economic diversity that really dates back into the 1950s with some integrated housing efforts. Today, we remain a mostly residential suburb, although are making efforts to expand our tax base, especially on the commercial side. So you'll see here on the left is the Van Aken district, which was the redevelopment of a 1950s era strip shopping center, into a town center. So office, retail, apartments, all in a very walkable area, and frankly, very walkable to many of the neighborhoods within the city of Shaker Heights. For those that it's not really walkable to, most of those are walkable to Shaker Square or the Lee Chagrin corridor, which is where we have our 3rd commercial district. We really concentrated on a couple things. One of those was water. The Sustainability Committee in Shaker Heights, which is a full-fledged committee of council, I think we're one of the few suburban governments to have made such a commitment, was really first developed in 2014 after some, at that time, fairly historic flooding events. Labor Day, I think, topped that. But that was really what led to our initial efforts to tackle sustainability more wholeheartedly. And what we found was that the lakes are a very, very important piece of our stormwater management ecosystem. but they're also aging. So, again, we have 2 dams that were built by the Shakers in the 1800s, and these are Class 1 dams, so very important from a safety perspective to maintain. And then we have 2 lakes that were built in the early 1900s, one of which the dam was just completely rebuilt. It's actually a beautiful dam that we did in conjunction with the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District, who's been a fabulous partner for us. And we have 2 branches of the Dome Brook watershed that flow through the city of Shaker Heights. And so we're very fortunate to work with the Dome Brook Watershed Partnership and the Nature Center at Shaker Lakes on many of these efforts. But so water was really something that we've spent a lot of time working on, particularly stormwater management, but just how we deal with water generally. The second priority that we spent a lot of time on was our greenhouse gas emissions. As we increased the scope of what the Sustainability Committee was focused on from, its origins with water to a broader look at sustainability, we really wanted to get a handle on what our baseline was for our energy use, really for all the commodities, for energy, water, sewer. So we knew what our baseline was and knew where we could really focus our efforts in order to make improvements. So as part of this, we did take what had originally been a task force in 2014. It became a committee council a couple of years ago. And as part of that, there are 4 subcommittees that really focus on specific areas around our sustainability efforts. So one is stormwater and green space, which again was really our origins. The second one, renewable energy, looking at the energy use not only of the city, but our residents and how we interact with energy and taking into account our electric aggregation program and solar programs and things like that. Recycling and waste reduction or diversion. This is something that Jason Wood spoke about earlier with the City of Cleveland. We have some of those similar issues with making sure that there's a market for our recyclables. So like the rest of the solid waste district a couple of years ago, we had to restrict the number of things that were allowable in the recycling stream. And so we've tried to address our residents' concerns by focusing on other methods of waste reduction. And so I've been working for the last several years very closely with the Rust Belt Riders, and we were the first city to offer residential composting programs to all of our residents, either through a pickup service, so just once a week at your doorstep. It is a paid service, but once a week at your doorstep. Or we have 2 drop-off locations within the city at the Nature Center and then at one of the city buildings. So working on trying to determine what other avenues we have for waste reduction and diversion. And then finally, and to me, one of the most exciting aspects of our evolution as a Sustainability Committee has been the creation of a high school advisory group. This is a group that goes by the name of Shaker Youth Leads, L-E-E-D-S, and they were tasked with looking at our LEED for Cities application and determining the areas that we should focus on over the next couple of years in order to increase our standings. Like the City of Cleveland, we're going for a certified level, but hope to move up over time. And so this allowed us to really work with a group whose voice is often not at the table. So we're very excited to have high school students. And in Shaker, we're very fortunate to have 4 high schools. So we have our public high school system, we have Hathaway Brown School, Laurel School, and University School. And so we have students from all 4 of those participating in this program, which has been awesome. The other thing that really informed the different credits that we looked at in the LEED for Cities program was what our residents tell us that they care about. So, as we talked about, waste is a big concern. It's something that, I think we all deal with on a daily basis and, have to make those critical decisions on how we just reduce our the waste that we create and recycle what we can or reuse it. Our the tree canopy, obviously very, very important to the city of Shaker Heights. Really fortunate to, again, have worked with the county on the recent tree study. And it's something that we have a tree advisory board who advises the city on these efforts. And really something that's very, very important to our residents and staff. Pesticide and herbicide use. This is something that has been a topic of conversation well before even the Climate Change Task Force. And we were one of the first cities to change the way that we combated West Nile virus by using larvicides in the sewer, the catch basins, rather than aerial spraying. So something that, again, you know, we're fortunate to have a lot of subject matter experts as residents in our city who contribute to the conversation all the time. And then the last one is renewable energy. This is something we have a really fabulous and committed group of residents and a renewable energy committee who work endlessly with our residents to inform them and make them aware of the choices that they have available to them in terms of opting into 100% renewable programs, whether that's through NOPEC, who is our aggregation partner, or others. As of next month, 100% of our city operations will be renewable through the purchase of Green E certified RECs. So back in May, we already converted our streetlights. All of our streetlights since May have been 100% renewable, and just due to contract timing, starting next month, all of our city operations, so our service centers, city hall, police and fire, everything is done through RECs, so 100% renewable. You know, for our sustainability roadmap, we also thought it was very important to have the input and buy-in of our city staff. This is very important to us. And so we created a green team, and they have done amazing work to extend a lot of these to the city's own operations, including bringing composting into the city's operations, led by our fire department, who was really, you know, one of the pioneers in this. So, you know, for anyone who's had a firefighter as a friend or family member, you know, have a family meal every day where the whole crew comes down and sits together. They make a big family style meal. So, you know, we're certainly no exception. And because of that, you know, we have firefighters who garden on the fire station site. They have a garden there, so they have, you know, it's even better than farm to table. But they wanted a way to reduce their food waste. And not just put it in the regular trash. So they piloted composting in that city facility. We extended that to our second fire station on Warrensville Center Road, and we also do it at City Hall and the Police and Courts building. So that was great. You know, we did, like the City of Cleveland and the City of Cincinnati, get a grant to do this work. So that has been very, very helpful, especially considering what's going on right now economically for cities. And as I mentioned, collaborated with our public and private schools to do this. You know, for us, we often get the questions of, can a smaller city reasonably do this, right? So a city of only 27,000 people, does it make sense to go through the process? And I would wholeheartedly say that yes, it does. It has been great in informing us, you know, in the areas where we can improve and the places where we can really bring resources to the table and leverage those, right? As a smaller community, we don't have the same resources that the City of Cleveland or the City of Cincinnati do. So we really wanted a way to leverage that and really focus our efforts on sustainability. And we feel that this program really did that. You know, we have great elected champions. So our mayor is a big champion. The members of our sustainability committee, who are also city council members, are great champions for this. And that is a very critical piece in this process. So having your elected officials really being on board and helping push this through, you know, having someone at least part-time devoted to sustainability is really helpful. Having your planning and public works departments involved, again, you know, you need everyone on board to get this done because there is quite a bit of data collection. You know, for us, water, sewer, and electric, those are all exterior stakeholders for us, right? So that is the City of Cleveland and the Division of Water. It's the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. It is First Energy for us. And so we have really been able to strengthen our relationships with those stakeholders through this process, which has been great. You know, there is some mapping involved. You know, we worked with county planning to do our mapping. So they were our consultant on this project and did, again, can't say enough of great things about their work for us and how great it was to work with them. So, you know, we spent, you know, quite frankly, a very reasonable amount of money to have all of our maps very professionally done. And those are things that continue to provide value for the city because, you know, whether it's sustainability or planning or city council, we continue to use those resources and to make actionable decisions. You know, there is a little bit of money involved, but it's really more time. There are the registration and certification costs for us, the mapping costs. but really much more time than money. So I definitely encourage people to do it. So why did we do it? I just alluded to this, really wanted to leverage a set of best practices. Sustainability is such a broad topic, and there's so many people, especially in our community, who are passionate about it. We could have gotten, dragged all over the place and really not been focused, but I think we've made the progress that we have because of the focus that we've had, that the program has given us. Again, because we have limited resources, we needed that focus, quite frankly. And one of the reasons why I think we've had so many champions for this, both among our residents, our city staff, and our administration and our elected officials, is because we view this as an attraction and retention tool for residents, businesses, and our staff. This is important to all of them, and we really want to distinguish ourselves as being a place where sustainability is really at the forefront. We wholeheartedly believe that change can and must be made at the local level, and so that's what we're doing. And again, as I mentioned, this has really resulted in actionable data that we've been able to use for other things. So that is it for me. Thank you very much. And I will turn it over, as soon as I can stop sharing here, to Ollie.
Thank you, Michael. It was a great presentation. Ollie, please take it over.
Nice job, Michael. Nice job, Deepa. I think our order here makes a lot of sense now in hindsight. Deepa, you gave a nice overview of the program. Michael, you gave a lot of the key priorities and drivers in choosing to go this route. And I'll focus more on what we put forward for our application and then lessons learned from looking in the mirror. So I want to start off, one day we walked into the office and we had this weird shaped package, and we opened it up and we were excited to find this big plaque from Site Selection magazine naming Cincinnati the top US metro for sustainability. Total surprise. I looked around in disbelief, gave each other high fives, sent it to the mayor's office. We're feeling good. And then later that same week, this report came out, ranking all of the US cities in terms of sustainability. And here we are in the bottom 10 out of 100 across the US. So we looked at each other, what the heck? Clearly somebody doesn't know what they're talking about. And it left us wondering, what is our impact? We're proud of a lot of the work we do, but how does it hold up to a measuring stick? In the meantime, there are plenty of real-world problems we're trying to address, right? Climate change is currently impacting the city of Cincinnati. You heard Michael talk about their storms and sewers. Well, that's really been a huge problem here. We saw over 3 100-year storm events last year. So those are storms that are supposed to happen once every 100 years, 3 of them in 1 calendar year. And like other cities of the Midwest, we have a very old sewer system that's just not equipped to handle storms of that magnitude. We also have a combined sewer overflow system. So when we have these giant storms, our stormwater and our sewage combine, and they can overflow and back up into basements. We've had thousands of homes now that have essentially other people's sewage floating around in their basement. It's a health problem. It's a giant nuisance. It's enormously expensive. Last year, we paid over $50 million in damages related to these storm events. That's city government damages. Then I have a picture here of a landslide. We're a very hilly city, and with these giant storms, our hillsides are slipping. This particular landslide goes across Columbia Parkway, which is a major thoroughfare in Cincinnati. And we are currently paying $17 million to fix this hillside. And we hope it's a fix. We really are not certain it will work. Notably, that is money that was supposed to be spent on a new police headquarters. So think about that. We are now really seeing core governmental operations be impacted by climate change. We're not just sitting around, though. We're taking action. We have climate action plans that have been in place since 2008, most recently updated in 2018. This was a big community engagement session, we held over 30 public meetings, collected 1,400 recommendations from our residents, and worked with our university partners to analyze those for carbon reduction impact and cost benefit. And ultimately, we distilled that list down to 80 strategies to reduce our carbon emissions 80% by 2050. The recommendations fit within these different categories, very similar to what you saw from Cleveland, with an emphasis focusing on sustainability, resilience, and equity. I'll talk more about all of those. In many ways, we live in coal country. Our grid is really holding us back in terms of carbon emissions. So we know we need to focus in a big way on renewables. And Cincinnati has done that. We are now under contract for what will be the largest city-led solar array in the country. This will be 100 megawatts of solar that will feed both city government and the people of Cincinnati. So that's 1,000 acres of solar that will be pumped into the homes of city residents. If this all works to plan, we will save our residents money on a month-to-month basis by providing them locally installed renewable energy. Also important to note that this is done with a workforce development component, and the contract requires that minority and small businesses are leading the effort to develop it. We're trying to build smarter. So the city government tends to own and operate their building for a very long time, 100+ years. We still have fire stations with horse troughs. This building is the country's first net zero police headquarters. So net zero means it produces all of the energy it consumes. Solar on the roof, geothermal on the ground, high performance design. This building has no utility bill. I hope that this is a model that we use for all buildings moving forward. And we're trying to bring partners along with us. I guess it was December of 2018, we launched our Cincinnati 2030 district. I know Cleveland has a 2030 district as well. The focus here is bringing our corporate partners along on our sustainability efforts. So this is a voluntary commitment from property owners to achieve a 50% reduction in electricity consumption, water consumption, and emissions from transportation by the year 2030. So in 2 years, we have signed on over 25 million square feet of property that are making this commitment alongside. And this is hugely important. We are home to numerous Fortune 500s, and they have enormous influence and political influence as well. And we are embracing technology. I mentioned our sewer system and the problems we are facing. One of the innovative solutions we are focused on is our smart sewer system. So we've placed sensors throughout the sewer system that can detect when a part of the sewer system is being overwhelmed. Paired with those sensors is essentially what is a giant industrial balloon. And so when part of the sewer system detects overflows, it can inflate those balloons to create temporary dams to redirect water into other parts of the system, using technology to build resilience and address some of the climate change issues we're facing. Just a few highlights there of some of our high-profile sustainability strategies. As we measure, we have been successful at driving down Cincinnati's carbon emissions over 18% since 2006 when we first measured. We're preparing to release our next report, which will show further progress here, and driving it down 36% for city government operations. So we feel like we are largely being successful in our strategies. So why weren't we number one? There's a bigger picture here, right? And I think for a long time now, US sustainability efforts have largely focused on carbon and renewable energy in the built environment. And I highlighted for you a number of technological solutions. But clearly, looking at these UN Sustainable Development Goals that many parts of the world are now embracing, there are larger social and cultural and economic components to sustainability that we really need to focus on. And LEED for Cities is really an opportunity to look in the mirror, see where we are excelling, where we are losing ground in some cases. And I liked what Michael said a lot in terms of how valuable the effort was in terms of building relationships with community partners, with other city departments, building stakeholder engagement along the way on system. But it also gives us a benchmark to compare ourselves to other US cities. And so Cincinnati spent about 6 months undergoing this evaluation, collecting data. We learned a lot about ourselves. Ultimately, we submitted and we qualified as LEED Silver for cities and communities. Thrilled to certify as Silver, also feel like we could do much better. So maybe more than acknowledging the areas where we're strong, this evaluation underscored where we were weak. And we're definitely weak on the quality of life and socioeconomic components. Like many legacy cities, Rust Belt cities, Midwestern cities, we have very high rates of poverty that have numerous implications. This is an evaluation from our children's hospital here that looked at asthma rates from one neighborhood to another. Long story short, we have an 88-fold difference in how likely you are to experience asthma as a kid, depending on which neighborhood you live in. Inexcusable. Similar study looking at life expectancy. We now see a 25-year difference in how long you are expected to live. That's largely based on your zip code. And you know, we operate as the Office of Environment and Sustainability, and people say, well, that's not an environmental issue per se. And there's some truth to that. This is bigger than environmental issues alone. You know, poverty takes a giant toll. You know, you see crime, diet, access to healthcare playing a large role. But as we look at the impacts of climate change and climate disruption and who will be impacted by those events, these folks are on the front line. You know, in many ways, climate change is a risk multiplier, and it takes existing problems and makes them worse, much like we're seeing from COVID. So I want to share now a few areas where we're really focusing on the intersection of equity and climate. Issue number one is we're trying to address energy burden. That is the cost of energy as a percentage of your income. And there was a national study by the American Council on an Energy Efficient Economy that showed that low-income residents of Cincinnati, of Cincinnati, are facing the 8th highest energy burden in the country. So we are devoting resources and policy to addressing this. We have a lot of renters, approximately 60% of our population. We have a very old building stock. And typically you have landlords who are responsible for upkeep and improvements to a property and tenants who pay the utility bill. So there's no economic force to drive energy efficiency. We're trying to insert ourselves there to help address that problem. Urban heat is an emerging issue. We just did a urban heat mapping exercise where we collected over 10,000 data points to evaluate what temperature differences look like across our city in the middle of summer. We have some basic understanding in the heat map on the left, and you can see there are pretty significant differences from our high heat areas to our cooler areas. And those map pretty closely to where we have tree canopy. And historically, we've always said we are striving for 40% citywide tree canopy. What we're doing differently now is we're taking a look at a neighborhood by neighborhood level, and we can see that some areas are doing very well for canopy. Other areas are really struggling. So rather than a 40% citywide target, we are focused on citywide neighborhood minimums. Any residential neighborhood should strive for a 40% tree canopy minimum to help alleviate these heat issues. We did a study that showed that nearly 70,000 jobs in our region were not accessible by transit. So this past May, we put an issue to the voters to pass a sales tax levy to expand and improve our bus system. That passed by a hair, and so we will now have approximately $100 million annually to spend on bus system improvements to improve access to school, healthcare, jobs. There's a lot of focus here on affordable housing, and we're trying to remind our population that we're really talking about affordable living, and that utility bills and transportation bills play a giant role in the cost of living. So when we look in the mirror, we see that we have segments of our community that are not being served by our programs as they have been built historically. And we're doing everything we can to address those through more intentional planning by focusing on procedural equity, which means bringing voices to the table, and distributional equity, which means mapping where our programs are having an impact and what that looks like. All this work is highlighted at greencincinnatiplan.org. Happy to dive into further conversation or questions at this point.
Thank you very much, Ali. I see there's a lot of interest and questions directed to you specifically, and I am just going to start gathering those questions and send it your way. So one of the questions that came is, what percentage of offset will Cincinnati Solar Farm provide to SMEs and residents? And I'm going to combine the other question as well. What is the timeline on the 100% renewable energy for city operations? And who is your aggregator, Cincinnati's aggregator?
I might answer those in reverse. So currently we purchase renewable energy credits, as Michael also indicates he does, for city operations and also for our community choice aggregation program. And I think it's important to note that in Ohio we have deregulated energy, which means that if you generate electricity, you cannot deliver it. So here we have Duke Energy. So Duke delivers our energy to us and we receive a bill from them, but that's not who is generating the electricity. And through deregulation, we are able to shop for where energy comes from. What we are doing is we are constructing this 100 megawatt system and choosing to buy the electricity from that system. So we have a partnership with Dynergy, who is called a CREST provider, who will actually provide that energy to the grid to be delivered to the homes. I think the other question was what percentage?
Sure.
Can you repeat that part of the question?
Percentage offset will Cincinnati Solar Farm provide to the residents and SMEs? And yeah, the timeline.
So we have community choice aggregation in Cincinnati, which means that if you do nothing, city government purchases energy on your behalf. And that gives us wholesale purchasing ability, which means that we can deliver green electricity to you at a discounted price. So any residential account holder can participate in that program. So whether you're a minority or not. The focus of our SME operation, our priorities here is really on the development of the solar and who is engaged and employed to build the parts and install. So the workforce development component is really trying to build the renewable energy employment sector and train people up to do larger developments like this. I hope that answered the question.
And Sarah here has another question regarding the transit pass. Was that transit tax a municipal or county level tax, and how was it administered?
So for some time, well, for all of history, our transit has earnings tax for City of Cincinnati residents. What happened here is we eliminated that tax and passed a county-wide sales tax. So the difference there is a net $150 million gain. It spreads the tax burden to the county, which is serviced by the entire regional transit network, and also invites our visitors to help pay for it. So it's a tax relief to City of Cincinnati residents.
Thank you. Please continue to keep your questions coming on the chat box. And I think there's a follow-up question. County tax, is it on all taxable items?
Yes, it's part of our sales tax.
Thank you. And in the meanwhile, I would also like to ask both Ollie and Michael, what are some of the, Ollie had mentioned that quality of life was one of the, hardest category for, when you went through the process. Was that a similar experience for you as well, Michael, or were there other categories as well along with that category as you went through the process?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really interesting point. And I think that is where smaller communities may have a different experience than some of the larger communities, because quality of life was probably our best set of credits. The one that we, so for educational attainment, safety, kind of all those things, we scored very, very well. In fact, got some, extra credit on a couple of those. The one that we did not was the affordability. And, there's a little bit of a misconception about Shaker being not affordable, which is completely not the case. We have everything from $25,000 condos to $2 million houses, but really everything in between. But the way that affordability is measured, I guess I have some issues with the way it's measured. But so the requirement in the credit is 45%, that a resident would pay no more than 45% of their income on, I believe, housing and transportation. And we are significantly above that. But interestingly, that is one of the areas that the high school group is focused on. So they are helping us come up with strategies to address that issue.
I really wish we could say that quality of life was our strong area, but I can definitely say that City of Cleveland is definitely one of the affordable cities, and I think over 84%, if I'm not wrong, it's 84.4 or some percentage of our residents have combined housing and transportation costs less than 45%, which is makes our city very affordable. And any other place that you found more challenging, Michael, in terms of the categories, that you found any specific challenge that you think, or the gaps that you see that you hope to work more on towards your research certification? Maybe that is a category that you have decided.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would say in general, I think, what we discovered, not that it was shocking, but what we discovered was how many things were really outside of our control. Right. I mean, again, being a smaller city, we don't have control over our water. We don't have control over our sewer. We don't have control over our electricity. And so, but, rather than complain about those things, I think for us, it's really about figuring out the strategies to really get at the heart of what we're trying to do. Right. How do we get to less water use, for example? Right. And so for us, one of the ways that we can impact that is by educating our residents about irrigation water use, right? Something that, again, being a more suburban community, right? We have lots of turf grass and things like that. So working, again, with the Donebrook Watershed Partnership, with the Nature Center, with our own Stormwater and Green Space Subcommittee, working on ways to help our residents do downspout disconnects, to, replace turf grass with native species, to plant, native trees and shrubs and things like that. There's a group called Friends of Lower Lake, which is part of the Donebrook, who is doing, fantastic work around our public lands and in taking out invasive species. So I think for us, it's about, focusing on the things that we can do to combat some of those issues.
I'd like to answer the question from Judy here. Learning from Cincinnati's issues, how is Cleveland going to reduce health disparities? Again, this is one of those quality of life indicators. LEED has a way of measuring trend improvements, especially when it comes to health metrics. And the three specific metrics that they look into as part of the certification process is asthma, hypertension, and obesity. Yes, Cleveland has not seen a significant improvement in its trend in dealing with these three specific issues. But at the same time, I would also like to point out that during this process, this is definitely a great relationship building and an awareness process of what the city is working on and where we could, continue to improve upon. Two things that I learned is we are doing very well in cancer prevention. So the awareness is improved tremendously. And also our work in infant mortality has shown a significant improvement over the course of a couple of years as well. But there's no room for us within the LEED certification process to get credits for some of those efforts. So again, this is a certification process is a system that doesn't necessarily give credits to all our efforts, but at the same time provides us enough room and opportunity to explore and analyze the gap, where we lack. And yes, definitely, there is a lot of room for us to improve our health disparities and address in the quality of life area. I hope, I could not directly answer your question, but we are continuing to work with Public Health Department and Minority Health collectively to address some of those issues. So going to Ollie, did you have any other categories that you worked on that you aspire to, as you move towards a gold certification, is there any specific categories that you are hoping to focus specifically on?
I think it's important to note that LEED for cities and communities is also a work in progress, just like cities are. And there are areas that we scored very well where I don't think we should have, namely transportation. Based on the metrics they provided, we knocked it out of the park, but I don't think most residents would say that is an accurate description of transportation in Cincinnati. Conversely, I consider Cincinnati among the leading cities on renewable energy in the country. And we did not score very well in that category. And we actually had some back and forth with the evaluators based on the metrics that they asked for to score us. And I'm actually on an email thread now, maybe you are too, on how they may reframe that metric to more accurately capture what is happening in cities. So yes, plenty of areas where we need more work, but also some areas where I think the tool is still improving.
Thank you. So either of you, I would like to open up the platform for you to share some of your innovation credits, any interesting programs that you had captured in your innovation credits section, which is unique to your context and the city.
I mean, so just quickly for us, convening the high school group is something that we've submitted an innovation credit for and have so far received positive feedback on. But so I think, thinking about how we bring other voices into the conversation and the planning process went over very well. So.
Thank you.
We submitted everything over a year ago. I'm trying to remember what we submitted. So we have what we call a preschool promise program here, which is universal preschool for low-income residents. I know we contributed that. We also have a very aggressive LEED tax abatement. So for buildings undergoing renovation or new construction, we offer up to 15 years of property tax abatement if you meet different tiers of LEED certification. I think we also submitted our smart sewer system, which I highlighted as one of my slides. Those are three off the top of my head.
Thank you. I think with 1 minute left, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you, Ollie and Michael, for joining us today, and thank all the participants who has joined us for this LEED for Cities breakout session. And for more discussion related to this topic and also the topic of your interest, please do check your schedule and join us tomorrow for the sessions. And as mentioned in several of our discussions today, oftentimes people who are impacted the most are the one who are also disconnected from the conversation. So this summit is our effort to also bridge that gap, and would like to hear from our community members, what and their and promote the engagement efforts as we move our city towards a sustainable city. And currently we have tomorrow's session. There is going to be one breakout on 100% renewable energy, which is going to focus on energy burden and energy burden mapping as part of 100% renewable energy commitment. And I hope you could all join us there, and feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions, and if you would like help selecting some of the breakout sessions. Organizers are here to help guide you to the right section. Thank you so much once again, and I hope you all had a wonderful day one of the summit, and see you all tomorrow.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
Deepa.
you.
Thanks, Michael.